Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream.
All right, guys, welcome to my live stream. Let me make sure I have the audio thing pulled up. Kind of surprised I didn't have that pulled up. So let me open up, because I think there's an application I've been using that makes my voice sound nice. So let me get that. Well, it doesn't make it sound nice. It just handles the levels really well. Just have to find it real quick. Hopefully you guys are okay with some of the kind of choppiness of the last few streams. I'm still getting used to doing OBS direct, but anyhow, so tonight what I'm going to be doing is working on comics. So earlier today, you guys may have noticed that I was working on basically, writing some music, and then I've basically been spending all day, drawing a page. And now what I'm going to try to do, assuming that I can, is kind of like work on shading page 162 of Not Death But Love, The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. There it is. There's my audio business. So anyhow, as I'm doing it, because this is relatively new and I'm using some relatively new things, that's interesting. Now it's asking me to plug and unplug a device. Oh, wait, never mind. Okay, we got it. Ladies and gentlemen, we got it. So hopefully that's going to help the audio settings. Real quick, so I guess what we'll do is just kind of get into drawing. But as I'm kind of exploring this this realm of streaming direct from OBS, just let me know if you guys face any issues or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and make a goal too for the super chats. So let's do just a basic goal of, honestly, I'm going to aim for like 1, and I'm going to put any color, all the colors, and I'm going to set the timer for about a good 45 minutes. And how will I celebrate? I'd be curious to hear, if you guys watch this, what you think. But I'm going to say I'll answer question you present long as it's TOS safe. Cool. So I'm going to kind of say that, but the real goal is just trying to get a little bit of support for the live streams and stuff like that. So let's get into it. Before anything, let's just go and hop into the stream. So right now, what you're going to see is right here is my very bad view of pretty much of my desk. So you can kind of see the bad Wacom tablet that I use. You can also see the little Focusrite that I use when I do music streams. And I might play a little bit of the music that was recorded this morning. I don't know if I can yet, because I haven't really exported that new track. But maybe I'll play the whole. You know what we'll do instead is I will play the whole of the one before that. So I'm going to play basically the whole of song number 5, unmastered, because I haven't gotten the master back. But that might be kind of fun. So let me throw that on here for later. So, seems like it already started playing, and I don't want it to play yet. So, and let me check the settings just so that we have it set up to play. When it is set up to play, we'll see. So that's song 5. I'm going to go ahead and go to the audio properties, and we'll have that to where song 5, where we'll have the monitor and output. I love it. Okay, I think we're good to go, guys. I'm going to turn off the visibility, and we'll play that a little bit later in the stream. So how are you guys doing tonight? I'm going to be basically trying to shade this. I'm kind of under crunch time. This is not Death But Love, The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. The book is actually listed on Amazon, which is bizarre to me. But we're getting there. We're getting there in a good way. So, okay. Yeah, so today's been really good. I've mostly been working. I had like a weird stomach thing this morning, though, and that sucked. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever had that, but I feel like my allergies get really bad towards the very end of summer and this beginning part of fall, to where, you know, I don't know, for some reason, like my stomach gets weird and I feel sneezy and terrible. So anyhow, there was a bit of that this morning. So I had a bit of a late start, but aside from that, it's been a pretty productive day. Got a lot done. Got all my homework done for school yesterday. And then the nice thing is we're kind of lucking out to have a 3-day weekend with Labor Day. And so I'm actually pretty excited about that starting as well. Because that gives me an extra day to kind of catch up on some stuff. I have a painting I wanted to do for a friend who's a coworker for his anniversary. He wanted to have his wife and his last name with their like initials kind of connecting. And so I really want to work on that tomorrow. I might even live stream while doing it because it's an interesting kind of different thing. I'm going to be probably painting it on board, but the only downside is I might have to like rig up something to where you guys could see it, you know, as I work on my desk. So I don't know how that works, the desk setup from here. It's been a while, but that would be fun to share. But that's something I might do tomorrow. And then I know I'm going to be recording a little bit of music with my friend from No Saboteurs. I think we're working on song number 5 now, or song number 4. I can't remember exactly. But we've got some music cooking, and I'm on song 5 for my solo album. So it's looking pretty good for like music wise, but it's nice to have that extra like, you know, Labor Day weekend to kind of get stuff done and get caught up. I feel like, yeah, I think I already expressed my views on like 3-day weekends. I think 3-day weekends are a brilliant idea in general. So, yeah, and then I've managed to avoid guitar acquisition syndrome, which I think is good. Oh, it's saying YouTube is not receiving something. Well, hopefully it's still running. That's what I'm hoping. Let me know if it's frozen. It seems like it was frozen for a second there, but maybe it'll improve. But if you're getting a choppy stream, let me know. It says YouTube is not receiving something. So I need to kind of see what's going on. We'll see if that's working. I just opened the studio just to see if it'll kind of solve some of those issues. And this is saying YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming experience? Well, let's find out. Let me know. I know that Jim just said Kemble. Yeah, I'm hoping I'm getting steady connections here, but we'll have to kind of see. We'll see if this is like super choppy. This might be my first kind of foray into the OBS thing not working, because it's been working pretty smoothly. But if it's freezing, I'd love to know. It does look like it's frozen on when I look at the YouTube stream. Double check a couple things just to see. Close out some apps. We'll see if we get it running again. Okay. Jim said YouTube's a little bit choppy, but the audio's okay. Okay. Well, in that case, I might just chill and see if this kind of resolves itself, hopefully. We'll see. I'm hoping it kind of works. But yeah, so I'm going to go back to drawing and let's just kind of see if it ends up all choppy or if it kind of resolves itself. Because the last few streams I've done were pretty smooth. So I'm hoping this will be equally smooth, but I guess that's going to be like a tough one to know. Unless I'm like watching along live or something like that. Yeah, Jim was saying it's strange how your audio stays on point. Well, I think it's like, it might be a scenario of, I don't know if I restarted. My computer is very old and I've been drawing all day on it. So I think the lesson might be, on future streams to like, really make sure that I'm restarting my computer before kind of going into the foray of live streaming, because it does seem like it's a little laggy. I'm surprised that hasn't come back yet, though. That's surprising. YouTube is not receiving. I'm still seeing that. Well, whatever. We're gonna deal with what we got. Let me, I'm going to pop in another little nicotine supplement too. I have these little nicotine supplements that have been keeping me off of nicotine, like vaping and all that kind of stuff. All right. Kind of interesting. It does look like, looks like we're kind of there, I hope. I don't know. I'm checking YouTube and I am seeing it like really delayed. So I don't know. I don't know how to fully resolve that. Other than to say, let's see here. OBS. I'm going to check preferences real quick just to see maybe there's some preferences I could change that'll help with the stream, like the output maybe. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it seems okay, but it seems like it's like kind of blipping here and there in weird ways. So I don't know, guys. I'm hoping that fixed it. Hopefully that fixed it. It says the streaming software is connected. But it's also now saying it's not receiving. So something weird with the connection. Now I'm not quite sure if that's like choppy internet. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay. I'm just going to roll with it. We're just going to roll with it. Jim said, I feel like the guy that lets people know there are technical problems with their streams. How did I become that guy? It's true, Jim. You're our test subject. All right. Well, let's just blast through and see if maybe that connection comes back. Let Let me close out some other stuff that's open too that might be kind of bogging down my memory. I have Illustrator open. So if I force quit Illustrator, let's click quit out of a lot of this stuff. I don't need most of this stuff open. So let's force quit. Boom. See if all of those things work. I just force quit out of a bunch of crap. So hopefully that helps and doesn't end the stream. Who knows? Okay. I'm going to just continue to draw now. So yeah, it's been an interesting day. It was fun to like get some music going. I worked on like a slower thing earlier, and that worked really well. And I feel like even that live stream where I was working on music and stuff went pretty smooth. So I do think I'm still kind of learning some tips, but one of them might be to restart the computer before I kind of go into doing a stream. But yeah, so I'm proud of myself for not purchasing a guitar with money that I don't have. There is one in particular. Whew, I've had my eyes on, but I've managed to not do that, so that's good. And it was helpful to like pull out a new guitar today, like not a new guitar, but one of the guitars I haven't worked with in a bit, just to remind myself, like, hey, I need to be like playing what I have before I go acquiring other ones. It's like the little spoiled kid who's got like a bunch of toys, and they're like, but I want the new toy. It's pretty bad with that stuff. Speaking of, I saw the Unicornians. That was pretty fun. That's not out yet, right, Jim? But there is, if you guys wanted to see like a sneak peek of what Jim is working on, I believe he put the second episode of That's Rad up, which is a TV show, a really good feel-good family TV show from, I believe, the early 80s, the late 70s and early 80s that Jim has put on his channel. And if you guys have seen the Unicornians, you'll know it kind of ties into like the plot and stuff, but he has that up. And I believe the next episode's going to drop pretty soon. I think, Jim, you were saying in a week, right? Yeah, Jim was saying, I wonder if you're broadcasting that in too high of resolution. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering. So let me kind of see. Let me see my preferences one more time just to see what's going on there. We'll do output. I mean, I'm doing pretty low resolution, but the audio seems fine, so that's good. Video bitrate. Maybe we just slow down the kilobytes per second. I'm going to say, it says, warning, recordings can't be paused if the recording quality is set to same as stream. Okay. And then I'm going to go, okay. Did that work? Hopefully that kind of worked. It set everything to dark again, so we'll see if it runs smoother this time. I had the upload speed or the bits per second like even slower, but it's still saying YouTube is not receiving. Let's see. Only thing I could try to kind of change that might help with it. I'm going to try one more thing, and then we'll kind of see video. I could put the output lower, but that seems kind of silly. I'm going to try the output as, let's see, encoder preset, medium CPU usage. Let's just try faster. Maybe that'll work. That might make it worse. We'll find out. Okay. I'm going to just see if this works. We'll see. But let me know how it goes, guys, and if it's improving or not improving. Oh, it says excellent now for connection, so I might have just fixed it. But that's the fun thing. This is like a work in progress, so let me know. Let me know, Jim, if that made things better. So yeah, so what I'm working on right now is kind of shading this page, and my goal during this stream is to hopefully finish shading this page and make up for a little bit of lost time because I slept a little too long today. And a lot of that was just like, it's funny when you have allergies. I don't know if you guys get like seasonal allergies or anything like that, but I will get pretty rocked like towards the morning. And I'm not sure why it's always in the morning that it's like, it can be super bad. But yeah, so I ended up like napping a little bit, and then of course doing that music thing, and then right after doing the music stream I've just been working like nonstop towards penciling this page, and now we're kind of working from penciling to like shading, and then hopefully at some point, you know, tomorrow or something, like I can start getting into coloring and stuff like that. But I am excited about getting going on the No Saboteurs recordings. Those are coming out really good. Oh, you know what? Now that we're having good audio, why don't I play you guys? I did finish the audio for track 5, which is really weird. And as usual with a lot of my songs. So here it is. I'll share this with you guys while I work on shading this page. So here it is. Oh, there.
Took my time till what was left was not a friend of mine. Driving along the old coastline, the ocean tide swallows the night. Anywhere to wait. Tongues of angels speaking fire. Not so young, I'm driving PCH looking for medicine. Starting today in a slow decline till we lose track of the grand design. If there's a mistake, then it's by design. Like ocean tides receding to divine. Anywhere to wait. Of angels speaking fire. Yeah, I'm a young man, well, not so young. I'm driving PCH looking for medicine. So young, I'm driving PCH looking for medicine. I'm a young man, well, not so young. I'm driving PCH looking for medicine. Looking for medicine. Looking for medicine. Looking for medicine. Anywhere to wait. Tongues of angels speaking fire. When the day comes, all of the cannons watch explosions flash over the canyons. It'll be sun will rise from. Ooh, songs of angels speaking fire. I'm a young man, well, not so young. I'm driving PCH looking for medicine. When the day comes, all of the cannons watch explosions flash over the canyons. It'll be a night in which no sun will rise from. Ooh, songs of angels speaking fire. I'm a young man, well, not so young. I'm driving PCH looking for medicine. Anywhere to wait. Ooh, songs of angels speaking fire. I'm a young man, well, not so young. I'm driving PCH looking for medicine. I'm a young man, well, not so young. I'm driving PCH looking for medicine. Looking for medicine. Looking for medicine. Looking for medicine. I'm a young man, well, not so young. I'm driving PCH looking for medicine. I'm a young man, well, not so young. I'm driving PCH looking for medicine. Looking for medicine. Looking for medicine. Looking for medicine.
All right, so hopefully that gave you guys a taste of the song. Like, it's not mastered. I have 4 of the 5 songs mastered. I'm sure Robbie's gonna hook it up and master that one eventually too. But I'm really excited about it, and then it was kind of fun because I've been doing so many like driving songs and stuff. To do something that was a little slower and more chill, like this morning, was really fun. So if you guys didn't manage to catch that live stream, you should. And then what I'm doing now is just gunning to get these pages done, because they need to get done. There's a book. There's a book. It's listed, guys. It's actually listed on Amazon now, which is exciting, but also kind of nerve-wracking because I got to get this done. Yeah, so today I was like listening to all kinds of things, like podcasts and drama online, and then lots of demos. Like, one of my other passions for like listening to stuff, I'm curious what you guys watch to kind of relax. Like, art related stuff is always fun, but like, what are your other favorite like YouTube rabbit holes to go down? Mine is surprise, like it probably no surprise to anyone, but like I really like watching people like mod a guitar, like an old crappy guitar that they got from like a thrift shop or something like that, and like fixing them up. There's, even if it's not a guitar, like even if it's just fixing something ancient, there's something really nice about that. I don't know what it is. It's like there's something about taking something that used to have value and then kind of working it to where it suddenly has like new life. I don't know, there's something amazing about that. I think that there was a point where I was working on pencils and I actually put on a YouTube video of a guy building a house out of crates. Like he had a bunch of leftover crates and he like built an entire house like out in the forest using crates and like nails and like a saw. And it was kind of amazing. It was like some Russian guy, you know. I think he was Russian. I don't know. It looked like he was Russian because he worked pretty fast. Oh, that was the worst joke ever. I'm sorry. But no, it looked like it was just the area, and the guy himself looked like he was possibly Russian. But it was cool. It was cool to see. Like, I guess I admire that kind of thing because I'm not like really much of a handyman type person. And so for me, it's like, it's got the fascination that I'd imagine maybe somebody who doesn't do art, if they saw my channel, like me kind of carving away at these pages really slowly. Maybe that's interesting to people who don't do it. You know, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it might be more interesting for people who don't do it. I don't know. But anyhow, it was fascinating from that standpoint because it's definitely something I'm not, by any means, you know, great at. But yeah, anyhow, so, let's see here. Hopefully the stream's running pretty smooth. I hope it is. And Jim, by the way, thanks for the tip. I think I was broadcasting in too high of resolution. So hopefully this is, smooth and not like too choppy for you guys. Let me know. I just hope I'm not like, you know, running like at a second a minute, you know. Yeah. Because it does say that my connection is pretty excellent, so I don't know if that's true. Only you guys can tell me. So, yeah, it's been a really chill day. We had a snafu with we tried to make curry, and I think we didn't boil the potatoes long enough. My wife wasn't too happy because we accidentally used brown rice instead of white rice, and she is not a big fan of brown rice, so in curry. So it was kind of like it was a hit. I liked it, but I think they were disappointed in the way the curry came out. And then my son, like, he just wanted us to, like, he tried a bite and then he was like, no, I want like grilled cheese instead. Can you make me like a grilled cheese instead? So we made him a grilled cheese. Anyhow, that's the drama. That's the intense drama, guys, that goes on whilst drawing. And then I'm happy to see that the Dodgers are like not losing every game right now. We haven't been doing too good the last few games, so it was kind of nice to see a comeback kind of thing. I was all excited about like just crushing the Diamondbacks because I have so many friends in Arizona. Although none of my friends in Arizona really care about baseball, so it wouldn't have been the most fun thing, but it still would have been fun to be like poking fun at Arizonans, but that didn't pan out very well. Like the last few games, they're a good team, Arizona. Anyhow, so that's been interesting to kind of see. Let's see here. Okay, so I've got most of this page kind of shaded. What else was I listening to? Just, you know, it's funny, but like there is like drama on YouTube that's very fascinating. Like you'll almost like, if you start following certain communities and stuff that are more kind of drama-ish, I'm very thankful, by the way, that we're not in a community like that. Like, especially, you know, watching a little bit of YouTube drama. I'm so glad there's like, I'm really thankful that like the Artcasters community, we're pretty chill. We all do art. I don't think there's any high drama. I think if somebody came into the community trying to cause high drama, I think it would be, it just wouldn't be met well. But I have to admit, it is alluring when you have these channels and communities that have all this infighting and wildness. Sometimes it's fun to watch, which is like probably horrible to say, but it's like almost like a voyeuristic thing where it can be really interesting. It's like daytime soap operas or something. There's a question: do soap operas even exist anymore? There used to be a whole genre of television that were soap operas. And I feel like I haven't had cable in a long time. So I'm probably out of touch. I think like reality TV stuff kind of took the realm of the soap opera. I don't know if I'm wrong there, but I don't think there are any running soap operas. Correct me if I'm wrong if you're watching this and you're aware of like some kind of soap opera that's running. Yeah. But yeah, today was interesting. My wife and her sister like to watch murder shows. And I'm always expecting at some point to see Gary Hodges just appear, because Gary works in, basically like, reconstructing crime scenes and stuff. And they'll like they'll interview like experts and stuff. I asked Gary a long time ago if he had been on any of them, and he said almost, but not. But one of these days, I'm expecting that my wife and her sister are going to be watching these like murder shows. And then there's going to be like Dr. Hodges. Like there's going to be Gary Hodges being like interviewed about like reconstructing a crime scene. But it's funny. It's like my wife and her sister like love those shows, like those true crime shows so much. And it's like, I am like, I don't know. I might be a strange person or something, but like for me, it's just like, it's hard to watch true crime. Like I can watch a documentary that's about crazy cults like any day of the week, like, or even a war documentary, like a documentary that goes over like a war or something like that. I'm like all in. I'm interested. But when it comes to like a show that's just like, just brazenly like reconstructing how a murder would, like an unsolved murder was solved or something, it's like hard for me to get into. It's saying error. YouTube is not receiving enough again, man. So hopefully the connection just issue. We'll see, guys. We'll see. Thank you for hanging in there. Let me try to see if the preference change thing works again, because that seemed to work last time. Let me go to output. I'm going to try to put like, what if I make the bit rate? What if we do it even higher? Maybe that'll help. I upped the bit rate, so we'll see if that actually works. Oh, okay. Maybe I just had the bit rate too slow. I don't know, guys. I don't make the rules here. It is like almost like seeing justice like play out for somebody. And then I think the intrigue of like, just seeing kind of like the worst of humanity or something. I don't know. But like, I just like my tolerance level for that kind of thing is like pretty low. I've been like that since I was younger too. Like, I have trouble like watching like real life violence kind of stuff. Like friends I know, they'll watch those like YouTube channels where it's like somebody like falls, like they throw something bad and then they fall down or something. Like there's like entire YouTube compilations of that where it'll be like somebody hurting themselves, but it's like, doing something stupid and then they like fall on their face or something. It's like America's Funniest Home Videos, bloopers kind of things. But like for me, I always have trouble watching those because I just like immediately imagine like the medical bills after, and like it's just, I feel bad for the people, like, you know, and they'll like, but there's people who like that's their jam, like they love watching that stuff, you know, and it's like, I for some reason it just does not work for me, very well. Let's see here, general. No, I'm trying to just see if there's something that's going on with my output that is like slowing the computer down somehow. Let's see. Just giving it a shot, changing my bit rate and stuff and seeing if it'll work, guys. Yeah, okay, now it's back to excellent. Dude, I don't know. I don't know. What I do know is yeah, like I don't know, for some reason I've just never had the personality to really enjoy those like blooper videos where it's like you're watching somebody just like fall and hurt themselves. Like, and I know there's probably like some kind of karmic thing about it that's fun to watch, but I just can't derive joy from that. I think I empathize too much with the people. Let's see here. We're going to do the sky here. And this is going to require a little bit of like soft gradient and then get a little darker as we get away from it. Yeah, but murder shows I feel the same way about, like those unsolved murder type things where it's like it's intriguing and it is kind of cool to see how they catch the person, you know. And I can see there's like maybe a catharsis to that, right? Because you're kind of like seeing the worst of the worst or something like that, but like it's like it I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a good way to kind of describe it. It's just like I don't know, but like the reality of it, I think, is just too harsh for me. I don't know. Do you guys like murder shows a lot? I'm kind of curious. Anyhow, so but my wife and her sister to relax like towards the end of the day, like, you know, they'll put on like a good murder show. Have that kind of going on. The dogs like sit on the couch and kind of hang out with them. I'll usually be working on stuff. And it's always, I don't know, it's always fascinating to me. Like they find it like very relaxing. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a common thing. Let's see here. And again, I can kind of watch them with them, but it's not my go-to. But then again, like if I watch like YouTube drama or something, I can watch it and really enjoy it. Whereas my wife will be like instantly like not into it. Like it's too real and uncomfortable. So I don't know. It's funny. It's like the different, to me, like people's different tastes and preferences and stuff, and like media is really interesting. Like the reasoning, you know, like what hits people is fascinating to me, you know, because like some people really like slapstick like humor, and I find slapstick humor okay, like it's kind of fun, but like it's not the stuff that like gets me like laughing, like hardcore laughing. Quite often, like the stuff that I find funny is like more situational kind of comedy type stuff. That kind of stuff. Okay. Let me kind of start working a little bit on this sky. I'm going to just get we'll get these, I'll just get these clouds, and then we'll kind of work our way from there. But yeah, the thing I've been looking at is this thing called the player modified Stratocaster. It's a Mexican Strat. And Mexico makes amazing Stratocasters. They have for years. But they've, kind of modified it to have basically like noise canceling pickups and like better pickups and then like locking tuners and stuff. And they look so nice. It's like that's the danger of the guitar acquisition syndrome. So I really want this to be a darker kind of moment where we're kind of seeing they're going to be talking about death here. And so I'm trying to kind of shade this to where it's like the sun is low. They're looking out at the sunset, and we're going to kind of get a little bit of this narrative with the dialogue that's going on. And I have this on a separate layer so that I can just worry about rendering the city, and then we can kind of clean up anything that is overlapping in a way I don't want it to. And it's tough because this is an actual area of Casa Gaidi where, you can kind of see all these things kind of play out, all these different buildings and stuff. Yeah, I'm pumped to be through my homework. It's funny to be at a point of doing college again where it's like you almost forget, like when you're out of school, like how much work and homework and stuff school is. But it's kind of nice in a weird way, because going from that to teaching, it gives me a better empathy, I think, for my students too. So and also, I really enjoy learning. Like, this is a weird thing where I never quite understand why people like hate college or look at, institutions like learning stuff as bad. There is kind of like a weird narrative that I've noticed. And I kind of get it. Like, I get where it comes from because, I've mentioned this before, but it's like I grew up kind of poor, and yeah, YouTube's just having issues, guys. So hopefully it won't lag too much, but I think this will just be a choppy stream. But yeah, so there's just this like idea that I think I had when I was younger, and I still kind of do to an extent, where I don't like elitism. And I've never been a big fan of elitism. I grew up kind of poor, and so to me, there's a certain breed of like rich, educated elitism. I experienced it a bit when I was going to, the Cal State system, where, I was pretty poor, and so like I had all these friends who had like cars, and they would be just shocked that like my family hadn't bought me a car. That kind of like wealth kind of elitism, but not just that, but there's like coded language that academia felt like they used that was like kind of used to exclude the common man. And so I can kind of understand some sense of like anti-elitism when it comes to people's perceptions of like institutions or areas of learning. But I also think like it's kind of a mistake, though, to take that frustration with like, people who are actually like really pretentious or like full of themselves and really aren't super educated. Like they're like faux educated, like they're educated to kind of show off, I do think there is a place for that being kind of viewed with disdain, but at the same time, I think like for some reason we've done like a 180 as a society, and like so it does feel like people almost put like no premium or no value on somebody being an expert on a subject, or being like an academic. And like, so it's gone from like almost like a healthy distrust of like institutions and maybe a skepticism about like mystifying things so that, you know, or like valuing, you know, educated people as if they're the only people who count or something like that. Like, I think that's bad. But I think that there's definitely a place in the world for, like, we need people who are actual experts on things. And you kind of can't run a society functionally if you start basically viewing everyone as an expert. Like, so a good case in point, it's like, no matter how pretentious it might seem, if my doctor is telling me, you know, about a disease that I have or something, you know, he might come across as if he's saying he has knowledge that I don't have. And that could be viewed as like offensive. But in reality, it's really good. He's a doctor. He does have knowledge I don't have. Like, there's like an institution behind it. That honestly, it's kind of good to have an elite in that sense. Like, anyhow, education is the same way, where learning is good. Like, and having people who are learned, like people who actually have learned something, it's not a bad thing. It's a bad thing if it's used as like a weapon, but it's like, I think it's a noble thing to kind of pursue learning and knowledge. So like, because of that, I've always really enjoyed learning. Like, I like learning. I like knowing things or learning things that I didn't know. And I by no means view myself as like an intelligent person, but it's like, I don't understand the disdain that some people have when it comes to things like college or institutional learning. 'Cause it's like, it's got its values, you know, like there's, it would be a scary world if we had people just kind of going with their gut on everything, you know? I think that was kind of half the joke of the movie Idiocracy a long time ago, where it's like, the premise was like, well, I'm not going to listen to some expert, you know, I know just as good, like, you know, and it's like, no, sometimes like the experts, sometimes it's good to have like, you know, vetting and knowledge and allow people to be experts in their field, you know. I wouldn't want somebody consulting me on how to build a house, you know. And I also wouldn't want to rely on my knowledge for a lot of things that I'm not an expert on. I'm an art major, you know, and I'm starting to get better at education and learn and teaching, but it's like, there is a place for, I don't know. I wish our society kind of encouraged people to gain knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Not just gain knowledge for commerce. 'Cause I do think, the pursuit of knowledge is almost like not even really valued as much. But what do I know? I mean, it's late at night and I'm just kind of rambling, but it does feel like there's a devaluing of knowledge itself, like as a pursuit. And I think that sucks, because like one of the most fun things in the world is to be curious, you know? One of my favorite things from the Crestline Art Retreat is like learning about all the different artists and what they're doing and like why they're doing it and what their motivations are and how they view art. And like, I don't know, it just seems like a boring world where you wouldn't be curious to like find out from other people what, you know, makes them tick or what drives them or like what, you know, techniques and stuff they have. And I don't know, it seems to me like the pursuit of knowledge is kind of that. So I've been enjoying that about college in a weird way, where going back to school has been fun in that sense, because I had kind of forgotten how much I like learning. Like, I just really like the process of learning. And like, even when they go over things where it's like, oh, I'm really familiar with this, there's always like, you know, something in there that's like something I haven't thought about in a while, or that I didn't know, you know. And like, even if it's like 10% new knowledge that's cool. Like I really enjoy it. I think that might be what draws me to teaching too, is I feel like you learn a lot teaching. You kind of become like you're almost like a lifelong learner teaching. So I'm rambling, but that's what I kind of view as the possibility there. We're doing some shading here, guys. And apparently I think having some pretty choppy video output, so I do apologize if that's irritating to you guys, if it's starting to freeze and not move very quickly. That's just kind of what I got to deal with right now. But let's see how long we've been streaming. We've been streaming for a little bit, yeah. So for about almost an hour. So maybe I'll start a new stream in a second, just to see if that works. But I feel like my computer's working. I'm making progress on shading, so I don't want to. The one thing I don't want to do is like delay the process, because I can definitely tell I'm a little tired tonight, and I want to be able to, finish, make a good chunk of this page get done. Might brew some coffee. What are you guys gonna do for Labor Day? I feel like it'd be fun to get out and do something fun, but but most likely, I think the only real wild thing I'm doing is tomorrow doing a little bit of music with my friend, and then probably just working, which is good, because this deadline is definitely coming up. If you guys are curious though about Not Death But Love: The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning, look it up on Amazon. It's there. It's there for pre-order. It's kind of wild. It's been pretty fun to see. I'm not going to promote it too heavily till I find out from marketing like what our kind of game plan is for it, but yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's a book I've been putting a couple years into, so it's nice to see it start taking form. So we're just getting all this kind of going. You know what might be fun tomorrow is maybe we should go to Barnes and Noble. Maybe my wife and I will cruise by Barnes and Noble. Just walk through the bookstore a little bit, get a coffee or something. Because I do think there's something reinvigorating about seeing books. Like, I really love books. And it's like a love-hate thing, because they do occupy a lot of space in our house. And that can be kind of a drag, but they really are beautiful things. Like, books are beautiful things. I feel like books could be a dangerous habit, kind of similar to guitars though, right? Because like, I feel like if you were really wealthy, and here's a question for the chat, or for anyone who might be up listening. If you were really, really wealthy, like, let's say you just had tons of money, would you find it hard to not buy like rare books? Because I've thought about this, like, how stupid people can be with like immense amounts of wealth, right? And I usually will look at that, like somebody who gets like just some ridiculous amount of money and they blow through it, and I go, what an idiot, like I kind of judge it, right? But then I've done these thought exercises where I've asked myself, like, what would be the things that I would waste money on without realizing it, And one of them would definitely be guitars. And another would probably be like rare things. Like, I can understand why like really wealthy people like back in England had like little curios in their house, Like, actually, if you live in Los Angeles area, there's this place called the Museum of Jurassic Technology, and it's kind of like a recreation of like a British curio kind of thing, like a museum before museums, where it's just kind of like a bunch of just odd things. It's a great museum. It's a great little museum. But anyhow, like people's living rooms used to look like that, you know, in like wealthy, you know, like wealthy people's houses, you know, and there is a part of me that could see that being a problem for myself. Like, because like I really like dinosaurs, you know, I think dinosaurs are fascinating and interesting. I've never been in a position in my life where I could like buy a dinosaur fossil, like have an actual dinosaur in my house. You know, and if you're like really, really rich, like you could probably buy like an actual dinosaur, like skeleton, and have that in your house, like a full blown like rebuilt like Velociraptor. Like there are people who have like, you know, fossils like that aren't in museums. Like it's literally just, it's part of their house, you know. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I could see myself doing that. Like you want to think, to me, I want to think that I'd be like very smart with my wealth if I was very wealthy, but I might just be buying like dinosaur fossils and like guitars, you know, like it's like, and then like trying to do like humanitarian stuff too. But I'm like, but also having a full T-Rex skeleton in your house. It's like an actual T-Rex. I mean, how cool. Yeah, there's all sorts of things like that. But anyhow, I want to know what your things are. Like, would you know, like what would your stupid expenses be? Like the thing that if you had stupid money, what's a stupid thing you would buy? Because all of us have like the realistic thing where it's like paying off of a house for a family member or yourself, or, you know, getting family members a car, that kind of stuff. That's all kind of well and good. And I sincerely think that would probably really happen. But what are the dumb things you would buy? Like what's the like, you know, because when I think about it, like there's no end to like dumb things you could buy, and they aren't necessarily dumb like as things. They're just dumb as like probably not wise expenses. But yeah, I could definitely, like, I get less judgmental of people who get really wealthy and then blow it when I start thinking about the stupid things that I might actually like struggle not buying. One of them being a T-Rex, like, you know, a T-Rex skeleton, having a full blown T-Rex skeleton. You wouldn't be tempted with that if you were like, you know, a billionaire. I don't know, man. Anyhow, so there's just times where like things like that, or like swords are really cool. I don't own a sword, you know. I'm a little scared to like ever buy a sword because they're so cool. Like if I bought a sword, then would I start collecting swords? And then like, you know, then where does that go? You know, I'm kind of the same way with vinyl too. Like I really like the idea of vinyl. I like vinyl a lot. I like the sound of music that I like on vinyl. You know, Keith Foster was talking about like vinyl's like one of his things. You know, he buys vinyl. You know, and he's a practitioner of collecting vinyl, and it's like, you know, I could see myself very easily getting there, and that's why I don't buy vinyl. Like I've bought a couple albums on vinyl, like support bands or something, but it's like I don't pursue it because I'm worried that if I open that floodgate, I'm just gonna like blow all my money on vinyl. You know, like I don't know if that makes sense. Do you guys have anything like that? I think for Jim, it's his doll collection. You know, he collects these old creepy dolls. You know, ventriloquist dolls, and it's like, if he was well, Jim is a multimillionaire. We all know this but it's the creepy ventriloquist dolls and like having just a wild, like, you're at an antique shop and you're like, well, I got to get that next one. All right. But I am kind of curious what you guys would have with that. So right now we're basically starting to work, but I don't like my shading on her face. So I'm going to kind of start pulling a little bit more darkness here. I can't remember who that musician is. There's a musician who had a song that said, "And Then I See Your Darkness." It's a really good song. And I think Cash did a cover of it, Johnny Cash, and it's a really beautiful song. But when I was saying I need to see more darkness, I was like, I need to see more darkness. All right. We're going to get there, guys. Let's see here. And we have been going for about an hour, so I might put on a trailer so I can kind of brew up some coffee. My wife very rightly kind of pointed out I shouldn't brew a whole pot of coffee because I tend to, by accident, like just out of habit, I'll brew like an entire pot of coffee. Like anytime I'm brewing coffee, I'm a coffee drinker, so like I need a pot of coffee brewed. But when I brew like a late night coffee, I never drink like a whole pot of coffee, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to brew a whole pot. But I do, so I need to remember tonight to not do that because I'll probably have like 1 or 2 cups and then call it. Oh, nice. Adam just popped in and said I would waste money on anatomical figures, like old-fashioned medical figures, like a plastic eye to show diseases and stuff before they had photographs. And then Jim said, good night, you're in my earbud as I go to sleep land. The art looks good. Nice, Jim. You are slowly getting more sleepy. And when you wake, your millions will be given to Joshua Kemble. You'll deposit. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so Adam was saying it would be like weird old medical illustrations and stuff. Yeah, I totally get that. And like old books are a huge one for me. Like when I used to live in Portland, one of my favorite things to do was to go to Powell's Books, and like the top floor of Powell's bookstore there is like all these cool old like used books, like first editions and stuff. And like they even have some like illuminated manuscripts and stuff. And I'm like, dude, I could see myself like blowing a whole bunch of money on illuminated manuscripts, And then of course it would become like a sickness because, kind of like owning guitars. Like the second you own a guitar, now you got to like condition the fretboard and like, humidify like your case and stuff so that like you maintain the thing. Well, it's like the same thing with like old books. Well, now that I have old books, now I need like a wing of my house with like old book proof stuff, with like the perfect temperature for books and stuff. And like, I was just saying, I'm less judgmental of wealthy people blowing their money when I start thinking about the realities of like, wow, yeah, I would totally probably be the guy who's like, well, I mean, it is a first edition, like, because I mean, I collected comic books, like when I was a kid, and I still like owning books. So it's like, I just can't imagine being so wealthy you could have your own like library. Oh my gosh, And then I've thought about like, and I mean like real, like legit, hardcore, like English style library where it's like a wing of your house is like a library. I mean, I don't know, man. That sounds pretty cool, Yeah. Tankersley FX said, hi, Tankersley. How you doing? Yeah, physical models of muscles would be cool. Yeah, a lot of that stuff. I would have a curio museum in my house, you know? It'd be weird. So anyhow, I can see why people get the collector bug, you know? We're going to kind of do... I'm going to finish up at least her on this panel. I think I can finish this whole panel. And then we'll do a little commercial break. And I'll make some coffee. Because I definitely need a little bit of coffee. But yeah, there's some things that I just really like, you know. And it's funny, I have to be kind of careful with the things I pick. Like, again... I've never opened the vinyl rabbit hole because I'm afraid how deep it'll go, you know? Do you guys have anything like that? That's like a thing you'd get interested in, but you're like, crap, that, like, if I get interested in this thing, that's a very expensive hobby. Because to me, vinyl's one of them. Like, I have a lot of, I mean, I'm a bit of an audiophile, and then I have a lot of friends who are total audiophiles. So it's like, you know, for that type of personality, I've seen friends lose entire living rooms to vinyl collections, you know? Like their house, like one room of the house at least becomes the vinyl collection. And so, and I know this of myself. I know that this would be where I would go. So instead I, you know, work on comics. That's one other benefit of working on things, because I do think that the average Joe, your average person, is basically working on stuff so they can buy stuff, right? And one of the fun things about creativity is, you know, ideally you're kind of just working on something to make something, and so the more you kind of make stuff, I think that consumption gene thing goes away a little bit. Like, 'cause I think a lot of why people consume things is to feel better, or feel good. And when you do something that doesn't require consumption to feel good, it can be like a little addictive, and kind of fill that hole a little bit that I think people try to fill with like buying stuff. So a good example, like when I get hit with like guitar acquisition syndrome, it doesn't hurt for me to actually record a song or something. And then I'm like, well, actually I like the ones I have, you know? I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like there is something to be said for that, because I think that keeps the consumptive animal in me at bay a little bit. But I still am a complete nerd and like things that are really weird. And I mean, like, let's say you're really wealthy, you know, like even like wine. Like, I like wine kind of, but like, what I like more is like a murder mystery with a wine cellar. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, I don't even know if I want it for wine. I just want a wine cellar. I think that would be amazing to have a wine cellar, because that's every murder mystery I ever watched, you know? Or secret paintings with cutout eyes, you know, that you, like a secret room with a secret door. And then you can look through the painting and people actually see the real eyes behind it, like looking out. Like, that would be fun. Adam said, if money was no object, I'd probably buy a lot of old vintage advertising and signs. Oh, yeah, that's a good point, Adam. Like old neons, too. Like, there's something beautiful about old neon signs, you know? And old advertising, for sure. So, yeah, so, again, you know, I get judgy of wealthy people and the stupid things they expend money on. But then I realized like I would just spend it on stupid things too. Like I'd try to be, altruistic and stuff like that, but, but at the end of the day, yeah. I mean, I think in theory I'm old enough to where I'd be a little wiser with it, but I'm just saying I can see how quickly that can become a slippery slope. Because I'm not wealthy now, and I have to be really careful not to, again, go down like the vinyl rabbit hole, because I already have enough interests, right? If I tack that on, that's just going to be unsustainable. And like, there's other things like that. So, but I think it's a fun question to ask yourself. Like, what are the silly things? What are the crazy things you'd buy? And then there's historical objects too, right? There's history collection type stuff where, like, it always mystifies me that somebody can own like a chunk of history. Like, that's always weird to me, or like a famous painting. Like, there's a lot of things like that it's like, I don't know if I don't know. Okay, so we're getting here. Right now, I'm more than happy if, I just make expenses enough to cover the mortgage, like that's kind of my main interest right now. That and a Player 2 modified Stratocaster. I don't know what brought back my love of Strats, because I learned on a Strat and then became a Tele guy, and now I think it's just that I got a Strat that functioned really well and then was like, oh yeah, these are fun. Yeah, he said Christine McConnell did a video where she made a painting with removable eyes that you can peek through. That's awesome. And then Adam was saying, I do have some purchases I made like that, like very expensive old Winsor McCay newspaper stuff, spending far beyond what I should reasonably put into that. But that's the thing. Like, there's another, right? Original Winsor McCays, comic pages. Like, there's like billions of comic pages out there that would be fun to own, So it turns out we were rich all along, see? Because if we were rich, we'd just be like blowing it on comic book pages and like ephemera. I don't know. I gotta say though, like, people who have like big crazy houses, especially in California, it always kind of blows me away, because it's like the expense to just keep that place up and have like a staff of people who are keeping up your house, and like your property taxes. Like, it's just kind of crazy to me, the kind of absurd wealth some people have, and like that houses they choose to have, because you would think, I guess it kind of makes sense, because like, yeah, it would be cool to have a house with like secret passages, maybe like an old Victorian or something, but it still always kind of mystifies me that like more people, when they hit wealth, don't like just like have a reasonable house, Adam said he has some Kevin Cross originals. I've got a Kevin Cross original right back there, right? Boop, that guy. Yeah. I love Kevin's work. Let's see here. I'm going to try to do the sky here in a way, but I think I'm going to have to erase it out. So, okay, let's do the let's do this little this back thing. Definitely feeling the need for coffee though. Definitely in mass need of coffee now. How are you doing, Adam? How's life treating you? What you working on now? Hopefully you're working on a fun project. You're always usually working on some creative stuff. Any new music coming out? Feels like you're often working on some epic thing. One of the things that I've found getting back into making music is it's really important for me, and maybe you guys experience this too, but like one thing that really helped me when I started getting back into it and I was going to do like solo stuff was like just shutting off the critic in me. Cause it's like, you know, obviously like trying to make stuff that matches my taste, but also being comfortable with like just kind of like making something for the sake of making it, and being okay with like kind of following a just kind of following the music where it leads, you know? And that's been really liberating in a weird way, because it's like I think one of the reasons I didn't do a lot of solo type stuff, because, you know, we've had like at our fingertips like the ability to do that as musicians for years, you know? And I remember when I was younger, if I had like a Tascam in my room, like I'm going to make albums. Like I wouldn't have released them because I had nowhere to put them, but I would have made music. And then like some point, you know, you get to this point where you start like almost like judging, like prejudging what you're making, you know, where you're like, well, why make it? And like, I don't know, going down this like dark path or something. And like, it's been really cool to just kind of shut that off and be like, no, I'm going to make these things because I like making them. And kind of letting the, I don't know, the critic in me like shut up so that I can work. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know why I'm rambling about this, but oh, nice. Adam said working on an alien language for a comic project, and then a lot of video game music lately. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, but yeah, that's been really helpful for me, is like just being able to be like, look, I want to do this. And so like almost like just shutting off the critic that would shut it down, you know? Yeah, which is kind of weird, but I think a similar things happen to me with art where, you know, I feel like a finished product is better, like a finished project is better than like, you know, a perfect idea, you know? And so like, I feel like I have to be kind of making this stuff, and I have to kind of shut off the part of me that's like super critical, even though there is a part of me that's still going to look at it and be like, well, that looks weird, or I need to fix this, or, you know, and like, I'm still working with a publisher and stuff. So there's feedback and stuff like that, but it's like, I kind of need to make sure I'm like moving forward and not over guessing it, or, is that a word? I don't know. Overthinking it, you know? But it's been, the music thing's been really fun to just kind of get into that zone of like, almost like the kid, you know, with it, like I remember, so we had a Tascam, my old band had like one of those Tascam 4-tracks, and it was always at my bandmate's house. But I remember literally going, you know, to like a Best Buy and buying the type of tape that, because there was a specific, I can't remember the name of it, but it was like a specific kind of Maxell tape that 4-tracks would work with. Like you couldn't just use like an average, just like, you know, blank tape for recording. So anyhow, I'd get like a set of those, and then I'd like spend the night at my friend's house, and I would bring my acoustic guitar because he was in my band, you know, and I'd bring my acoustic guitar, and then like while, you know, everybody was sleeping, I'd like go out in the garage with like the Tascam and like record like an album, you know, like just on like tape, you know, because I could, and like overdub stuff and stuff as best as you could back then with like a 4-track. And like how like precious and amazing that was to have that time to be able to record, you know. And now it's like we have like everything at our fingertips to like make anything we can dream of. And I think a lot of the time it's like that inner critic will kind of I don't know, like shut it down or something. I don't know. Anyhow, so it's been nice to be able to get over that a little bit. Might be just a byproduct of getting older too, where it's like I just have less F's to give, you know, probably because I'm a little older now. So maybe there just are less F's to give. I don't know. Okay. This is coming along pretty good. I like it. I'm going to merge visible. And then I'm going to go brew some coffee. I want to read the chats though. It's been a few minutes, so let me catch up on the chats. Tangrisley said Papa was a Rolling Stone. Nice. Organizing old artwork lately. That's been fun. And then he said, putting together an old hand-drawn animation I'm reshooting. That's awesome, dude. All right. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to put on let's put on the long Kemble files. I'll be right back.
Well, Mr. Stryker, I have you now. There is no escape. You will tell me where the Kemble files are, or you will die beneath the crushing electric arms of my shoptopus.
I hear you chirping, little birdie, but JT Stryker ain't no stool pigeon.
Very well. You have left me no choice. Bring out the doctor. Say hello to Dr. Hodges. I'm sure you're familiar with the doctor and his work.
If by work you mean the murder and torture of innocents, yeah, I'm familiar.
I've waited a long time for this moment, Stryker, and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it.
That's what your mother said.
Well, that's a horrible thing to say. You don't even know my mother.
Don't let him interrupt you. Come on, man.
Look, fellas, we can tango here all night, but it doesn't change a thing. You're never getting the Kemble files.
Oh, I beg to differ, Stryker. I have certain negotiation methods.
Your mom has negotiation methods.
Stop it. That didn't even make sense. That's not even... It's not applicable.
Listen up, compadres, and listen good. Option 1, I'm giving you 2 bozos and out. You untie me, I walk out of here, and everybody goes home happy. Option 2, I kill everyone in this room and then...
You idiot! You killed him!
I felt triggered. I've been learning to stand up to bullies. I just read 2 stories. Joshua Kemble's raw, introspective graphic novel chronicling mental health, faith, and the struggle for redemption. I also read Jacob's Apartment, a coming-of-age graphic novel about faith, love, and post-college existential drama. They've changed my life choices.
I'm sorry. I had no idea. I too am a fan of the books of the Joshua Kemble. But I'm still going to have to kill you.
Kill me with kindness?
All right, we're back. Welcome back. I have coffee brewing. I might step out for a second once it's done brewing. But the coffee is on its way. And we're working on comics late into the night. So my goal is to hopefully throughout this stream to kind of work on this and see how far we can get. I hope I can finish the whole page. I don't think it's impossible, but I definitely am in need of that coffee because it's a little later, you know? Yeah. Yeah, Tankersley said not enough Fs to give. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that's kind of a nice place to get, where you just, I don't know. Things that seem really dire don't seem as dire as they once were. Or getting more comfortable with who you are, The one thing I always worry about, though, is I have seen some people, as they age, to kind of like, they start to like hedge down on like beliefs in kind of dangerous ways. And that's something I'm always trying to kind of be cautious about with myself, right? I don't want to ever become a person who becomes so like politically locked in my mind that the next thing you know, I'm like joining a cult, and I've seen people, older people especially, have that happen, where it's like, well, I've thought this way for so long, that kind of thing. So that's something I always want to be a little wary of. Because there's definitely wisdom that comes with age, but there's also like kind of a good thing about like younger people, and like some of it is like the ability to like look at something freshly, with like a fresh pair of eyes and not be predisposed to like a judgment. I think that's pretty uniquely older or younger people kind of thing. Let's see here. Coffee is good to the last drop every time. I can smell it brewing, which is pretty exciting. Okay, we're gonna do our bit here. Kind of shading this page. We're getting there. I think I went too dark down towards here. And I'm going to get as far as I can before we hit the dreaded 2 in the morning. I feel like at 2, that's where things get, at least one thing I've realized about myself is like, as long as I'm in bed by 2, I'm pretty good. If I push past 2, things get bad the next day. But as a night owl, I have to like have that kind of cutoff time in mind, because I do have a personality that I'll keep rolling till, the wee hours of the morning. I feel like 2 is pretty reasonable for like not pushing past that. Yeah. Got some coffee brewing. Might be ready in a few, but it's definitely needed. Adam said, how many pages do I have left? Let me see. A little over, like, I think like about 50 pages left, or I should say 54 pages left, somewhere around there. And I think that it's gonna get done. Kind of a crazy one. But yeah, so I'm working on page 162 right now. And I'm hoping to kind of have this finished soon. And then we'll work our way from there. Yeah, this will definitely be... It already is the longest graphic novel I've drawn. There's just a little bit longer to go. Yeah. And then tomorrow, that's another thing. I'm going to be uploading the finished pages for my publisher too, so they can start putting together galleys and all that fun stuff. Okay, I'll be right back. I'm going to grab that coffee. Grab that coffee. All right, coffee achieved. The worst part about wearing glasses is like sometimes you have these moments where you go to grab something and end up smacking your own glasses. Let's see here. That's good. Adam said, that's awesome. So you're what, about 80% done? Yep, about 80% done. Somewhere around there. It seems like a lot, but compared to where it started, it's not too bad. It's been a journey. I mean, it's like changing up the style entirely and kind of hoping that that'll convey the story that it's trying to. And some really ambitious pages that there's still some ambitious pages to come, but doing some of those scenes, like there's a couple pages here that I had to do that just kind of blew my mind with like the complexity of them. And so to be able to kind of get to a point where we're almost there is pretty exciting. Yeah, and I kind of have to keep that in mind because I'm going to have to push a little harder in the next month or so on this. So that's a good thing to kind of keep in mind as well. Is like that finish line, because it's actually in sight now, and that's pretty cool. Because there was definitely a point where I was about at like the halfway point of the story where I felt underwater for a little bit there, where it's just like, you take on a project this big, and again, keep in mind this is a big project for me. For other cartoonists, like there's cartoonists out there who've done 1,000-page books, so this is not like it's not the biggest undertaking in the world. It's just, for me, it kind of is, But yeah, when you're working on these big projects, it always kind of feels a little daunting when you're at the halfway point. But when you're about where I am, it's pretty encouraging. Because it really is like the end's in sight. We're going to get there. And so the main thing is just to not rush. Like, I really I got to gun it on these pages, but I also don't want to lose quality as I'm going. And so that's the key, is like maintain the quality, but keep a good momentum coming till they're done. But yeah, it's a good story. This scene's kind of interesting. Elizabeth and Sophie are on her patio at Casa Guide, kind of looking out. And they are having a conversation about death and like basically why she's not freaked out by death, because she's been like, basically her doctor has been telling her she's really ill. she's been having kind of these episodes. She's been taking a ton of laudanum at this point in the story. And so right now, like, Sophie is like, in a weird way, like feeding her laudanum, because Sophie's not the best character here, but also conversely is like, you know, upset that Elizabeth is ill, and she's basically asking Elizabeth, like, how do you deal with it? How do you deal with all this death stuff, you know? Now, the thing about Sophie as a character that I think is really interesting throughout this is you never really know fully with her, like, what's sincere and what's, like, her trying to buy favor with Elizabeth. Like, she's not a very sincere character. You have to keep in mind in the background, while all these scenes are happening, she's also studying under Daniel Douglas' home to, like, basically, like, scam Elizabeth, you know? And so it's like this, there's definitely, like, a darker thing. And Sophie as a character in history was really interesting because apparently she did this with, like, a lot of wealthy folks. Like, she would kind of glom on to, like, she was like an OG stalker. I don't know if that makes sense. But she would, like, glom on to, like, somebody very famous and then get very close, very attached to them. And then, you know, and Elizabeth would just happen to be one of the bigger ones that she did this with. So she's an interesting figure because she almost gets obsessed with the person, and yet she's also kind of like almost like trying to destroy them. Okay. That coffee was much needed. That gives me the strength to get through this page. Like Mighty Mouse's. What was it? Like, Adam, you'll know this. What was Mighty Mouse's thing? I haven't seen an episode of Mighty Mouse in a long time, but I remember when I was a kid, it was like this whole, there was a controversy with Mighty Mouse because, like, parents were saying it was basically like steroids that Mighty Mouse was taking. And I don't remember how that all panned out and stuff, but how did Mighty Mouse, like, get his powers? Was it just a pill that he'd take? He had, like, Mighty pills or something? And then I'm kind of, I don't know, Adam, you know more about, like, the history of, like, animation kind of stuff, so I'm curious, like, how did the creator respond to that allegation? Like, it does kind of seem in retrospect like parents might have been kind of, you know, doing their, like, 80s satanic panic type stuff, but with, you know, Mighty Mouse, because he's a, you know, I don't know. And then I think it also had unfortunate timing from what I can recall, because I think there were a bunch of athletes that got in trouble for using, like, steroids. And then, you know, you have, like, the PMRC or whatever. Is it the PMRC? I can't remember. It's the parents thing that, like, Tipper Gore ran, where she was, like, freaking out about punk rock and music and stuff. But anyhow, I don't know, Adam, if you know much about it, but it's fascinating to me how, like, you have these seasons where parents are, like, way overly concerned about TV shows and, like, you know, movies or video games, like, rotting people's brains and stuff. And then, like, those same parents, like, they'll kind of be okay with, like, political figures that are just, like representing everything they've been complaining about for years. Like, it's so weird. It's weird. It's like seasons of caring that, like, turn on and off based on, like, what, you know, what show to be pissed off at today, you know? He said the original, it was some form of magic cheese. Later, he had superpowers without a cause. Okay. Because I felt like there was something with pills or something. But I like the idea of magic cheese. Magic cheese would be a really good name if you were in a funk band. I feel like that's a great funk sounding band, you know? You could call it Mighty and the Magic Cheese. Yeah, I never got that deep into Terry tunes either. Do not feel bad, Adam. You already know a little more than I do. But I just remember that being a big controversy. There was definitely a Masters of the Universe thing too. He-Man was definitely, like, there was a whole thing back then where parents were all freaked out about He-Man. And they were thinking that it's like, you know, when what was the big deal? It was something like, I mean, of course Skeletor was a talking skeleton, so that was a big one, but I think it's the fact that he would hold his sword up and say, I have the power, where they were like, oh my gosh, this He-Man character is calling on the powers of the devil. Yeah, the Ralph Bakshi version that John K worked on was the one with the pills. Yeah, and I think that's the one that like caused that big controversy. Bakshi's an interesting guy, though, because like I kind of feel like he wanted controversy in a weird way. Like, I don't know. I feel like John K and Bakshi were like both guys who like almost courted controversy, like they were interested in it. So here we go. Getting a little bit of the shading done. The nice thing is, most of the shading on this is going to be character, so we'll make some progress. But I am awfully optimistic that I'll have this done by 2. My allergies are starting to kick in, though. Again, I don't know what it is with this time of year. I just get them so bad. So I met somebody the other day who absolutely hates the Smiths. And I was really surprised by that. Because I was like, I don't know, man. The Smiths are pretty awesome. I don't know. I wonder if there's somebody in the chats, if anybody in the chats like absolutely hates the Smiths, but I really dig the Smiths. I think, you know, I don't think that's like a hot topic kind of thing to say. I think it's, yeah, the Smiths are kind of great. But yeah, they just couldn't stand like Morrissey's voice. And that I can understand why somebody might be annoyed by Morrissey, because he is kind of like, he's wonderful. He's fabulous. Like, there's nothing wrong with Morrissey. But I can at least get like a window into like why he might be irritating to people. He doesn't irritate me, but it's like for instance, I think Bob Dylan is a genius, and I've loved Dylan's music forever. But if somebody tells me they're annoyed by like Bob Dylan's vocals, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't agree with them. I think they have the wrong take, but I definitely understand where they're coming from. Like, I can see why Dylan's not for everybody vocally, you know? For me, I like his songs better when he does them, mainly because of his vocals. Like, I don't like when bands from that time would like cover, you know, his songs and like make them all pretty, like vocally. They just didn't come across to me as strong of songs. My point is, like, I think Morrissey's one of those type figures where I can kind of see a window into it. But the Smiths in general, like, to not like the Smiths was a surprise to me, because I was like playing it a couple days ago and somebody told me I hate the Smiths, and I was like, wow, definitively, like, you really do. Let's see here. Yeah, Adam was saying, I think at that point back, she was trying to build a good reputation, but the other guys pushed the envelope. Tons of cartoonists worked on that series. Yeah. Yeah. From what I remember, yeah, that was pretty cool. But yeah, I was thinking, you know, why I was thinking about that is, I've been thinking about Morrissey's delivery on songs is really interesting. Like pop songs have like a specific kind of delivery vocally, and the thing I liked about Morrissey is he'd like go in these really weird directions that like are not like innate to the melody. So like he'd come up with like, he was a very good vocalist in that way, where I think he came up with like very interesting takes on a song that like most vocalists would go, you know, directly with the chords that are being played. But like Morrissey would come up with like these melodies that could kind of cast over. And then I feel like Johnny Marr did a really good job like complementing Morrissey's, you know, singing with like these beautiful, you know, bits on guitar. But I was just thinking about like that original delivery, like just really, I don't know, it's really interesting. Like I think when I was younger, I probably wasn't as into, like, I did like the Smiths a lot, but I wasn't as into like Morrissey in general, like his delivery. I think I was one of those guys who'd be like, the Smiths are great because of Johnny Marr, and like Morrissey's solo career is trash. I think when I was younger, I probably would have said that. Whereas now, I don't know, man, like, yeah, he's just a killer vocalist. Like, just the way his attack is really interesting. You know, because like you could have like, I think that's one of the things about like really good vocalists. Michael Stipe's one of those, in my opinion. Like, I think Michael Stipe's definitely a vocalist who like, he attacks songs in a way that like just makes them into something completely different, and doesn't necessarily follow like the rhythm of the song, or like, I don't know, it's like kind of using the voice as an instrument rather than just like a complement to like what is going on. Like there's an REM song called Ebo the Letter, and that song kind of kills me because of the attack that Michael Stipe does on it. It's like so good, but it's like it's a his approach to the vocals on it are just so different than like what most vocalists would come up with. Anyhow, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, because I think with my solo stuff too, I've been trying to think a little more openly about different vocal attacks, because I'm not by any means like a vocalist. I think my strength as a musician would mostly be just like songwriting, because I'm not like a shreddy guitarist, and I'm definitely not like the best singer in the world, and so or even the best singer in the room. So but but I do think like thinking about approaches to kind of attack like a song in a different way, like because your first thought is what am I getting at? Like your first thought, like when I was doing t-shirt design back in the day, when you'd be trying to come up with like a concept for a t-shirt, your first solution to like a problem or a bit would always quite often not be the best. Like, so you'd be like thinking about, okay, I want to do a shirt that says something about this specific topic or whatever. And then your first thought is usually the same first thought that like if you were in a room full of like a million artists, they'd all think of the same concept. And so half the trick with like with graphic design or illustration or t-shirt art was like to try to think, okay, well, yeah, but like what's an attack to that idea that like nobody's like, it's not like the first thought out of your head. Like what's something a little deeper that like, you know, puts a little more meaning into that thing, right? So I've been thinking about that with vocals, like something I'm trying to do more recently, where it's pretty tempting to just go specifically with the melody that you hear that's in there, and sometimes that's really cool if you like follow the melody of the music. But to come up with a melody that complements it and is like a new instrument rather than just kind of going along with whatever the rhythm guitar is doing or the bass line is doing is to me like a really interesting thing. And I've started noticing more and more like singers that really do that well. I think that's why Morrissey's been on my mind. Because again, like just his delivery is really interesting. Like yeah, it's fascinating to me, you know? Okay. We're getting there, guys. We are getting there together. Always together, dancing around. I'm singing a song for you. I don't know what I was doing with some of these lines here, so we're going to erase some of them. It's going a little wild here. Wicca wild. Do you guys remember that horrible? There was like this song. Oh my gosh, there are things about the '90s I do not miss. Like, I think this was the '90s when like Will Smith had like a movie, like the Wild West movie or something. And see, if you ever feel nostalgic about the '90s, remember this, okay? So there was this movie called Adam said REM is one of those bands for me where a few of their songs are some of my all-time favorites, but most of their other stuff I don't know at all. Stand is one of my all-time favorite songs. I love REM. I think there's probably 2 songs that I don't like by them. The one that I don't like, and I could probably tolerate now, but it was just so overplayed, was Shiny Happy People Holding Hands. That's the only REM song I kind of don't like too much. And then the other one is the radio song, which is like REM's attempt at having rap mixed with and that's on Out of Time. And Out of Time is an amazing album, like front to back, like almost a perfect album. And then they have the radio song, which I think is one of the biggest embarrassments in rock. But yeah, I love REM. Their early stuff's pretty cool too. They were a little like, they're a lot kind of sounded more similar to like the Replacements back in the day. Like they had a tinge of punk rockness to them early in their heyday. But yeah, I like REM a lot. Oh yeah, so I was gonna say though, if you ever start like waxing poetic about the '90s, though, try to think back to this song was in rotation. It was like one of the worst songs ever, and it was based on like some movie that Will Smith was in, where it was like West, Wild West, Desperado. It was like awful. It's one of the like, and it was just on rotation. And it was right after Men in Black, and like there was like a song called The Men in Black, and that was a horrible song. And then I think at that point you had like Puff Daddy and Mace doing these just like awful songs, like not even attempted, like they were just horrible songs, and the videos were just like, I don't know what was going on. It was like the very late 90s. I think late 90s, early 2000s, but I think this is all late 90s. Where like Puff Daddy and Mace would have these videos where they're just really shiny, like everything's shiny, and like people were wearing like trash bags in music videos, and everything was like lights and shininess. And it was a bad time. It was a bad time in pop culture is all I'm saying. Like there's some good stuff from that era, but I think sometimes people forget, the time in which all that existed. And you had a band like, I think Limp Bizkit had an album called like Hot Dog Water, or I can't even remember, but it was called like Hot Dog Water. And it was just, Adam said Michael Stipe seems like a pretty interesting guy. Yeah, he seems amazing. He's like, he's a poet, Yeah, I saw them on the Monster tour back in '95. That's show you how old I am. But that was a life-changing experience. Yeah, REM was definitely one of those bands that I just very much connected with, and I think it makes sense because Automatic for the People probably came out. That's probably the first time I heard REM was Automatic for the People and like Green. And like those two albums are just, it kind of makes sense that I got obsessed with them. Cause like I would say Automatic for the People is front to back a perfect album. Yeah. And I think that actually might have had a lot to do with me getting interested. Yeah. Adam was saying it was called Tropical Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, there are some things that were great about the 90s, but we had our foibles too, and I'm just saying, like, there's some stuff that like does not reflect so well in like, some 90s era stuff that like I don't look back at and go, boy, the 90s were awesome. There's definitely some stuff I look back at and I'm like, man, I'm glad that's over. Like there are a lot of things I miss about the 90s. And I think overall, like one of the things that somebody was bringing up recently in a conversation with me, and this might make me like an old grumpy man or something, but it's like each generation had their own kind of like movement, like musical movement, whether they felt like they were a part of it or not, like a new contribution. And I do feel like, to an extent, like grunge, as much as like I hated that word back in the day, that's kind of what advertising wanted to call some music, that was out at the time, or like the second wave bands that were trying to mimic like the sound of quote unquote grunge. But that kind of like that rock and roll that was starting to fuse like punk rock and metal, and then like just classic rock, all kind of in one weird kind of splurgy thing that was grunge. I think that was really unique to like the 90s. And so there is something to be said for, yeah, Tankersley said it's called Chocolate Starfish. That was it. So I'm saying like there's definitely some things that like are very unique about the 90s that I think maybe we, whoa, I don't know what's going on with my hands are off and it's just floating up. Okay. I clearly had like pressed something too many times and it was just on its own there for a second. So like I was having a conversation with a friend, I think it was like a week or two ago, and it is kind of interesting that like it doesn't feel like there's a generational style of music that I could pin down to like most generations. Like after, I think like the last big wave of like a style of music might have been emo, you know? And then I can't really think of anything after that that's like come in rock like that. Now this might just be me being older and out of touch, but it's like it doesn't feel like there's been any like big movements. And then somebody was saying, maybe I was talking about this in chats, because somebody was saying that it's more splintered now. So like you don't have like the big mega movements, you have like a bunch of little ripples, you know, because like it's kind of diversified. But I do feel like there hasn't been like a big generational shift of like what is the generation defining music right now? You know, who's like the Nirvana of like this generation or whatever. I don't know. It's just, it's interesting to think back where it's like, man, you had like some really like fundamental like rock happening in the 90s, and then like just what has come since. Like it's really weird. It's weird to think about. But then again, I also wonder if, is this just the nature of kind of getting older where, you know, because I am like, when I say that narrative, I do kind of forget Chocolate Starfish and all the stuff that was popular at the time that I kind of hated, you know, because it wasn't all beautiful. You know, there was a lot of like, you're going to, you know, watch this shiny music video and like it. And I'm like, I don't like this, but they're like, your generation does. And I can tell you too, like, having been like a fan of Nirvana too, there's a whole bunch of people who really didn't like Nirvana at the time until Kurt died. And then when Kurt Cobain died, like there was definitely like a group of popular kids who never liked Nirvana that suddenly were just, you know, madly in love with Nirvana. It was an interesting thing to witness as a kid, you know, because it was like a lot of guys who like, you couldn't even get them to listen to Nirvana, and suddenly they were like the biggest Nirvana fans in the world. And you're like, it's kind of weird, because like last week you didn't like any of this, but now that it's in the news, I don't know. So anyhow, I guess I'm just saying like, I do get nostalgic about the 90s and stuff, but in that nostalgia, sometimes I will forget some of the BS that existed in the 90s, you know? I still, however, have like a soft spot for a lot of, you know, great bands of the 90s. You know, I like a lot of punk rock, and I like a lot of indie music and stuff like that, but there's some mainstream stuff from the 90s that I absolutely love. I feel like Pretty Hate Machine is like an amazing album, like that 9 Inch Nails album. That's pretty amazing. That was pretty darn mainstream at the time. Nirvana, I think, is great. I think In Utero is one of the better albums recorded. Think of other ones. Pearl Jam's 10. I have a real soft spot for Pearl Jam's 10. I think that's just a great album. Let's see. Trying to think of other. Alice in Chains' Dirt. That's a great album. You know, I don't know. I think there's a lot of like really great like kind of albums from that era that were pretty fire. And then hip hop albums, there were so many good ones. So I don't know, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But I do wonder, like, will there be like a, you know, when people look back, you know, I don't know, what are like the bands that are going to kind of define this generation? And I guess maybe that question's been asked like before, and maybe that just doesn't become obvious till later on. Tankersley said head like a hole. Yeah, for sure. And then I even remember at the time people not wanting to like Trent Reznor, so they'd be like, "Oh, he's just a skinny puppy ripoff." Like all the indie goth kids, that was like the line that you'd see at like the indie goth clubs. They'd be like, "Oh, you like Nine Inch Nails? They're just a skinny puppy ripoff." What was big at that time for the goth kids? Oh, Ministry was a big one. Oh my gosh, it's doing it again. Look, it's moving without me touching it. Is it going to just keep going? Okay, there we go. I have a haunted computer, you guys. The haunted computer. What's another one from that era that like I would have been embarrassed to admit when I was all into like heavy into punk and dressing the part? Oh, Counting Crows, August and Everything After. That is an amazing album. I do not care what anyone says. That is one of the most amazing albums. Mr. Jones is one of the worst songs. I can't stand it, but like that album is amazing. Yeah, that was a good one from that era. And then you have like Weezer's Blue album. That's I don't know. I think that's great. Yeah, Adam said it seems like a lot of newer music is more internet based, like these obscure SoundCloud micro genres. Yeah, I think that's probably what's happening, where people just kind of find their niche interests and stuff. But see, I think that also there is a chance that like, you know, because I see like high school kids and stuff wearing like Nirvana shirts now, you know, and it's weird, you know, because I'm like, that's weird. That's the shirt I wore in high, you know. But then I realized like, well, a lot of my friends were all wearing like Zeppelin shirts and stuff back then, like, you know, like, or the Clash or something, you know, bands from like before our generation. And so it kind of makes sense that like, it's just, you know, it's part of the thing. So I'm sure, you know, when old people were looking at us in high school and were like, they're still wearing Zeppelin shirts because they don't have any real rock bands. You know, I'm sure that was a thing that some people were saying. And in reality, you know, there were our real rock bands that are all now being worn by like high schoolers now, you know. I don't know. But REM was great. REM was an excellent band. I'm trying to think of like other kind of mainstreamy stuff that I was into. I really love Weezer. Weezer's Pinkerton and Blue Album were like constant rotation albums for a good chunk of my life, which bums me out because I just cannot get into modern Weezer at all. I feel like modern Weezer is like it's just not even. I definitely think that Matt Sharp sketch on oh, and then Pavement was a huge one for me, but I don't think they were mainstream at the time. But what's interesting is they have a movie now that's out about Pavement that I want to kind of check out. Let's see here. And then late 90s, I was obsessed with At the Drive-In, which like people know now as like the Mars Volta. But At the Drive-In was one of my all-time favorites from that era. But I feel like that's more kind of indie stuff. Like I don't think that ever was like hugely mainstream. I guess One Armed Scissor had like a video on like MTV or something. Okay. Gen Z has claimed the Nirvana shirt thing as their own. Yeah, I agree. It's like a t-shirt band. and a lot of those people don't know any of their music. I think a lot of them do know the music, though. Yeah, Adam was saying I want to see that Pavement movie. I do too. I heard they went real artsy with it. Like it's supposedly like a part real documentary, part fake documentary, and then part musical. That's what I heard about it. I was like, okay, that sounds kind of perfect for Pavement, so I want to see it. I feel like if they have Malcolmus involved, it's going to be weird and artsy, you know, so. That's a band I saw live, and I didn't realize, like, because there was a rumor back in the 90s that they weren't good live, and I don't know why, but there was a rumor. It was just like, it was kind of like a known rumor. Like, there were two really big rumors. There were a bunch of big rumors in the 90s, but I remember hearing that Adam was saying a lot of the stuff you're listening is stuff my group of friends were really into. Yeah, I'm sure, because I think there was like a united front on these things, you know? But there was a rumor that like Pavement was awful live, and then I remember seeing them live and being like, I have no idea who started that rumor, because they're phenomenal musicians. Like, they're so good. Like, but I think it went around the same time as like the rumor that Billy Corgan's voice was horrible live. And then I had friends who saw Smashing Pumpkins and live and were like, yep, his voice is horrible live. Like, everyone I know who's seen them live was like, yep, that rumor's true. But yeah, the Pavement one, I have no idea where that came from, because like I've seen them live. They're just phenomenal. Maybe somebody just caught them on a bad night. Yeah, Adam was saying Malcolmus seems like one of those interesting creative genius types. Yeah, I think so. We were obsessed with Pavement because, like, at the time they were just kind of doing like the style of music they were doing was really like what we were going for as a band at the time. And so we like obsessively listened to like every single Pavement album, like on loop, you know? So like Crooked Rain, Bright in the Corners, Wowie Zowie, you know, just kind of like listening to these albums and like trying to like figure out. I mean, they're crazy albums, and it's interesting because at the time I didn't even really catch that they're kind of a jam band, so I'm kind of surprised I connected with them so much, because I'm not a big jam band kind of guy, like, but Pavement's just great, yeah. I think it's just the kind of almost like sarcastic delivery too. It's just so good. They're a really good band. Let's see here. But yeah, I do think there's probably like modern movement and music that'll be the next t-shirt band, you know, like there's going to be those big, you know, epic bands. I'm sure, again, it's just like we're just not hearing of them too much. There's a real guitar god type band right now called Polyphora or something, and like the guitarist is kind of amazing for it, but like the music is Polyphora, I think is what they're called. But like I listened to it and I was just like, I cannot get into it. Like the musicianship is incredible, but it's kind of like I feel about that the way I feel about like Steve Vai. Like I'm not a guy who like this is a thing about my personality. I tend to like, I appreciate experts, like people who are like phenomenal at what they do. So like Steve Vai is a guitarist that I feel like I've heard, and I remember in Karate Kid when he has that guitar duel, it was really cool. But at the same time, it's like I never was a guy who like heard Steve Vai and was like, yeah, I want to make that kind of music. Like that's just never connected to me. Like guitar gods, like guys who are just shreddy. Now there's differences. Like there are guys like Hendrix where I hear him and there's more soul in it. And so I connect more with it. But in general, like the guitar god type stuff, I'm not like, I'm not bending over backwards to like hear it, you know? And I feel like, so Polyphora is, I can't remember the guitarist's name. I should. They're doing something on guitar that's never been done before. And the guitarist is phenomenal. Like he is doing stuff that like, I don't think like 99% of guitarists, I don't think can touch what this dude is doing on guitar. However, do any of the tunes stick in my head? No. You know, do I like the songwriting? Not at all. But like, do I appreciate the technique? They're kind of like, I don't know if that makes sense. It's like a really flashy, good artist. And it's like, I can really appreciate the technique. I can acknowledge the fact that I will never play that well, technically. But I also feel like the songs are kind of forgettable. Adam was saying it's like virtuoso, but with really bad taste. Yeah. And like, I feel like the one of the reasons I like even BB King is a guy I really dig. But I feel like most guitarists, like a lot of really flashy guitarists can outplay BB King easy. But BB King was good because like when he bent a note, you like felt it. Like there was soul to it, you know? I don't know. Like, and that's like a taste thing, but it's just like, I've never been like Peter Frampton. I don't like Peter Frampton. And I remember when I was a kid and I was getting into playing guitar, I was dating this girl. This is a long time ago. And, we went up and stayed at her dad's house. And I remember her dad being like, "You're really into guitar, huh?" And it's like one of those old, like, this is a funny story. I forgot about this actually. It's kind of funny. So it's one of those old houses that like it, you know, there's like fake wood walls. Like I'm trying to lay the setting out for you, right? Like in the 70s, there was this like fake wood that was really popular to like line walls with. It was like a, almost like MDF. But I think in the 70s, it was like the cool, hip, like mid-century modern kind of way to line your walls of your house. So anyhow, this guy had that, and it's one of those houses that just reeked of cigarettes, like just because, you know, he smoked indoors and stuff. So it's just like there's just ashtrays everywhere and cigarette smoke just wafting through there. And then, of course, like really like thick, ridiculous, like shag carpet. And then there's like wood paneled walls and like all these rooms that felt like they had been kind of like added into the house. And anyhow, weird house this guy had. But he had a TV room, and it was like an old TV, and there's like a smoking chair, and just imagine like the old video cassette like bookshelves. It's like an old 1970s version of like a man cave, right? It's like there's just bookshelves, and they're all like faux wood bookshelves, and they're lined with like VHS tapes and stuff. And I remember the dad, and at the time I smoked too, but I didn't like smoking indoors. But anyhow, we're having a cigarette, and because at the time I think I was like 19 or something, and we're talking about. He's asking me about music and stuff, and he's like, "Here's what we're gonna put on. We're gonna put on Frampton Comes Alive. Okay, you like guitar, you're gonna like this. This is Frampton Comes Alive." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know if I'm gonna be really into like Frampton because I'm not a." And he's like, "No, we're gonna watch Frampton Comes Alive." So then, like, you know, and of course, this place had like the easy chairs. You know, this was like the 1980s. 70s, 1980s, it kind of had the vibe of like the aesthetic of like a really fancy like truck stop. Okay. so then he puts on Frampton Comes Alive and makes me watch the entire, 2-hour video where it's, and it's like, it again, on paper, just like, I can see why people were like huge, like, oh my gosh, this guy is a guitar god. Like, he is phenomenal, but it's like some of the, like, to me, that's what I liked about the, the grunge era or punk rock in general, was like kind of discarding that and just making music, where it's not like, these aren't guitar gods, they're humans making music. But I still do remember like trying to hold a straight face when it's like somebody going, he has that guitar tube. If you guys are ever bored, look up Frampton Comes Alive. But he has this tube attached to his guitar, and it's like, I can't remember what this instrument is called, but it's like, he's got the tube, and then at some point he's like, how's the audience doing today? And he's like playing a lead on his guitar, and it's like doing the filter effect, but he's like, are you feeling my leads? They're so good now. Wah, wah. Like, it's so funny. I need to look that up now. But I remember at the time being like, trying to like be, because he's like, isn't that amazing? That's a guitar through a tube thing. And I'm like, yeah, this is boy, that's incredible, sir. Like, it's just, anyhow, it was a funny moment, vivid moment in my memory. But yeah, are you feeling this lead with the tubey mouth? Like, I can't explain it, but you just have to imagine, he's talking to the audience and he's playing a lead, and then they're just like, a vocoder. I think he might have been the first like guitarist to use it, and the audience is just losing their minds, and he's just like talking through it while he's doing a lead, like, this is my cool lead through a vocoder. It's actually kind of amazing. But again, I'm not like a Frampton guy, I'm not like a guitar god guy. There are guitar gods that I think are amazing. Like, the Beatles, Beatles are up there, I think John Lennon's pretty amazing. I think Hendrix had found that balance where it's like guitar god, but good. I think Zeppelin's got like guitar god stuff going on, but like it's still rad and good, even though they stole like most of their songs. I don't even mind. I still love Zeppelin. Like, but then there's that other guitar god area, where it's like Cream. I don't know if I can get like heavy into, like, I don't know. There's like a line where it's like virtuoso, almost too virtuous. I don't know. Is that possible? Oh, I'm sure The Simpsons. The Simpsons have parodied everything, so I'm sure, Adam, there's got to be a Simpsons on that. But it is funny because like there is a part where he's just talking to the audience, and he's like, "I'm talking through my cool vocoder." I need to get a vocoder now. I kind of want to mess with that. I think that's what it's called, a vocoder. It's like the same thing that they did the like California knows how to party. But it was like attached to a guitar. Anyhow, whatever. It's like a painter who like knows how to paint like crazy, but like you just aren't into like their work, Like that's one of the interesting things about art to me, is like the soul of art, the authenticity of the art. Sometimes matters more to me than like the execution. And the execution's important, but it's like there's some really beautifully drawn stuff where I'm just like, I'm not feeling it, whereas there's some stuff that's like, meh, the drawings are okay, but you feel it, I don't know. Okay. How are you guys doing? It's about 1 a.m. I'm going to be done by 2 a.m. though. That's the goal here. And when I say morning, I'm saying morning. I want to get like a vocoder effect just so I can, at the beginning of my stream, be like, how's it going out there? With like a lead. Oh my gosh, I almost want to. Excuse me, I almost want to look it up on YouTube right now, but I feel like I'd probably get copyright struck, right? I'm sure Peter Frampton has a lot of copyright stuff. What would be hilarious is from my like weird bad impression, if I was like dead on and I do get copyright struck, like Peter Frampton's like, how dare you steal my vocoder bit? But it's always weird to me because like there are things with technique, you know, that the technique versus art thing is always interesting to me. You know. Anyhow, so I'll tell you this, like I heard Polyphia, I can't remember. Anyhow, amazing musicians. I don't even think they're making bad music. I just and like proficiency wise, I just can't even understand it. It's like bizarre, you know. And I just remember the guitarist name, Tim Henson. So and like here's another thing. I've even looked at the guitar that he has on Sweetwater because it's an interesting guitar. I've never really seen one before. And now Ibanez like sells them and they're pretty cool. It's like a nylon electric guitar. And it looks a little more accessible than like your typical like nylon guitar. So even that, kind of interesting, adding something new, kind of bringing into the forefront like an instrument that, you know, I'm less familiar with. But still, like the music itself, and I think they even have a video with Steve Vai, and I feel like it is in that realm of like the Steve Vai thing where it's like, it's almost like music for musicians, where it's like doing things that, you know, other guitarists might take and like do something great with, but it's just not ever going to really connect with me. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. But I still find that really interesting that somebody could be like easily one of the best guitarists and still like their music's not gonna hit. Adam said, "What fine art movements are you most into?" The photorealists in the 70s were really interesting. I like Chuck Close a lot. And that whole kind of movement. And then seeing what Chuck Close did after it was pretty cool. Not my favorite. Dada is a huge one for art movements. Late Impressionism is really interesting to me. Like Cezanne, like that whole movement is really interesting to me, where it's about color and kind of bringing the color of shadow out. And I like how the Impressionists were trying to capture like reality. They weren't trying to be like super realistic. They were trying to be realistic to like what your experiences of color and moments. And that to me is really cool. I find like there's this era of Catholic art that's really fascinating to me, where everybody kind of drew the same. And they almost had to because of the Catholic Church. And so you end up with these like weird kind of almost like comic book like triptychs. We're just like all over the place. And some of the art in those is really cool. So I really like that. Let me see other art movements I like. Dada is definitely one of my favorites though, because it's like humorous, like the whole movement of that. I mean, definitely like there's an era of like the Romantics that's pretty fun. Romanticism and stuff. There's that peak like era right after the Catholic Church kind of eased off a little bit, and people were doing like mythological paintings and stuff, where you have a more kind of realism like start to appear. So that's like, you know, like Michelangelo, that kind of era. Like the Sistine Chapel and stuff. That's really fascinating. Roman art is really interesting, like the weird kind of textures and patterns and stuff that are going there. There's let me see about other movements. I mean, of course, there's like the kind of like pop art movement in the 70s, which I think is less interesting, but I do like some of what Warhol was doing before that, like when he was doing illustrations. Trying to think of other art movements. There's this kind of more modernist paintings that are some of my favorite painting, where it's like hyper realistic, but also like very expressive and thick paint. And that's kind of a movement led by Freud's like nephew, like Lucian Freud, who's probably one of my favorite oil painters. So that's kind of amazing stuff. The Rembrandt era is really interesting. Late Rembrandt is big for me, like for favorites. I think that's a really cool era in general where, you know, the Enlightenment has a lot of really interesting art that kind of came along with it, because the Enlightenment was like, you know, there was a lot of freedom in the literature, but also art kind of started exploring some of its roots that it had lost touch with during that kind of the dark, what's called the Dark Ages, you know. And part of why it's called the Dark Ages is, at least in art, like it was very like forbidden to do any of the, like, to kind of build on some of the innovations that had started happening. Yeah, just seeing like early iterations of like, yeah, there's so much stuff. I mean, there's Bosch, like Bosch's like crazy hellscapes that, yeah, there's all sorts of movements I like in art. Sorry, that was. Corey said, "Are we talking about boring virtuosos?" How's it going, Corey? I didn't mention you and you appeared. Corey, I usually. Oh yeah, Japanese woodblock printing is huge. The influence of that is massive too. Oh, American woodblock, or not American, European woodblock printing is really interesting too. Look into Albrecht Dürer and Schongauer. That's like some of my favorite stuff too for like woodblock. It's like Albrecht Dürer was an expert woodblock artist, and then you had this guy named Schongauer who was starting to use like more modern print making techniques, and so there was this feud between the two where Dürer was outdoing Schongauer but using woodblock prints. That's a pretty fun era. Yeah, there's a lot of amazing art. Hindu art's really fascinating too, like early Hindu art. I find really interesting. Like a lot of the Krishna and Radha like portraits, like they were like these kind of scrolls that were really interesting, where they did these like crazy pattern work paintings and stuff. But yeah, I'm big on like most of the movement. The movements I'm not like huge on. I'm not like the biggest fan of Cubism. I'm not against Cubism, but I feel like Cubism was cool, like in the idea of like being able to see multiple planes of reality at one time was kind of a cool idea. But like I feel like and I think the lack of like the ditching realism was actually pretty healthy at the time and led to some really cool things, but I'm not a big Cubism guy. Expressionism is really interesting to me, like splatter form paint and stuff. for like really abstract stuff like Kandinsky, like the kind of jazz, the jazz people are really big. Corey said those guys are freaking hilarious too. Yeah, there's just like the beauty of art history is it's pretty fun to look into. Even early like Mesopotamian art's really cool. They were really obsessed with chubby ladies. Like if you look at like old fertility gods, it's crazy. It's like they were really into women with a lot of meat on their bones, you know? Back in the day. But they're also like really cool like carvings and I don't know, it's like art throughout the ages is really cool. But one of the things I love about looking at art history is how much like art is sequential imagery. Like even those early Hindu paintings I was talking about, like and you know, even a lot of Japanese woodblock prints and illustrations and screens and stuff that were illustrated. It was like a lot of this was like telling stories, triptychs too. A lot of this was like early iterations of like comic books, basically. Like if you think about it, like the Catholic Church back in the day, like commissioning the Sistine Chapel was basically commissioning like a giant comic book page. You know, a giant comic book. Like, like if you look up the Sistine Chapel and the different panels and stuff, and it's narrative art, you know. That's one of my favorite things about looking at art history is when I do, what I see is the comic book over and over again. I think I like the Renaissance more than Baroque art. Because you were saying Baroque is definitely one of them. Surrealism is it's funny. I like Magritte a lot, but I am not a fan of Dali. I'm one of those weirdos who, like, I feel like the melting clocks thing gets old. I don't think Dali was that good of a painter. That's my hot take. Is that awful? And again, this is an opinion thing. I think Dali as a figure was really cool, and I think his drawings were beautiful. Like my favorite stuff by Dali is the you know, where he did his tilting at windmills illustrations. Like those were really cool. But like Dali's paintings kind of bore me. That sounds kind of snobby to say, but I don't think he was that good of a painter. But Magritte was hella amazing, like, you know, at painting. So I like a lot of the other surrealists, but oddly enough, the big surrealist Dali, I'm not a big fan. Isn't that strange? Waterhouse is great too. There's a lot of like really great painters. And my problem is it's been so long. Adam said, I think Leonardo da Vinci is a much better artist than the Baroque artists. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, there's a lot of really cool art. Diego Rivera's art's really good. Like it's like this interesting, like socialist, almost like folk art, but very like modernist at the time. I don't know. It's really interesting to look back at a lot of art. Like there's so much good stuff. This is me rambling, but I'd have to kind of dive in deep again with like some of the movements, you know? Degas is amazing. A lot of that stuff in the salon was kind of incredible. But I still think like Degas like kind of weird like oil paint / oil pastel like ballerinas and stuff. Those are some of the most beautiful like drawings / paintings, just expressing movement and stuff. They're so beautiful, you know. Yeah, there's just too much good stuff. I should go to an art museum again. It's been a while. Yeah, that's exactly kind of my thing. I'm not a big fan of like Dali's color. Because I feel like Dali was like using a lot of just kind of like, you mix in black with the paint to make it dark and you mix in white to make it light. And it's like when you see like what Rembrandt was doing with color later on in his life, or like you look at like Cezanne and you see what these guys were doing with color, and then you look at Dali, it's almost like watching, which by the way, I shouldn't criticize too much because this whole book is using white and black to darken and lighten color, you know? So I'm not totally opposed to it. I'm just saying, like, I feel like he might be a little overhyped is all. But yeah, there's just a ton of beautiful pieces. The thing I love about art history is like, I don't honestly remember a ton, and I had to take so many art history classes to get an MFA. Like, you have to take like a bunch of art history to get a BFA, and then on top of that, you have to take a ton of art history to get an MFA. And it's like I can kind of remember stuff, like if it's brought up or if I'm in a museum looking at it, but like overall, I don't really remember a ton of like specific movements or anything like that. But what I do remember is like this beautiful variety of images. One of my favorite art history classes was like the history of printmaking, and it did go over a lot of like Japanese prints and early like Hindu art and stuff. It's pretty cool. But also just kind of the history of like the development of the printmaking process, and that was pretty awesome. Yeah, there's just so much. I don't know. There's so much that's stunning. Adam was saying, I love Dali's work and his whole persona. I think I like his persona the most. I think that Dali's persona, and again, like his drawings were just like, I still think those are some of the most beautiful drawings ever done. You know, when he was doing that collaboration with Disney that never really came to be. Yeah, I think Dali was the best. But I think yeah, I'm trying to think of like painters that just like blow my mind. And Rembrandt, late Rembrandt, I like thick paint. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. But like the real polished, like pretty, like Renaissance stuff where it's like you don't see the paint, everything's like smooth and perfect. That's kind of like not my jam. And so like why I like late Rembrandt, if you look at like late Rembrandt, it's like some people attribute the way he was painting to like him being blind, but I attribute it to him being a better painter. But if you see like late Rembrandt where he's really letting that paint like thicken up, that is my jam right there. And there's still some books, you know, that I love. Corey said that's on Disney now. They finished it, did they? Those are beautiful drawings. That's all I have to say. Raphael's colors are really amazing. I feel like for drawing, Da Vinci was like the bomb, though. But Michelangelo, kind of amazing. But I think mostly just his sculptures are what really blow me away. Like Michelangelo's like paintings are good. They're not bad paintings, but they're not like, they don't blow my mind. Whereas his like sculptures are like unbelievable. Like what he was doing. I don't think there's really been a sculptor that's like that good. Like, you know, and he was known in his time for that. Like he kind of sculpted the unsculptable stone, unsculptable stone. Like that's kind of how the, anyhow, whatever. Okay, guys, I am finished with this page. And so with the shading. And so that means that we're going to probably call it. Adam, thank you for the great topic. Nice. I should watch that on Disney Plus. I didn't know it was on Disney Plus. I'm going to have to check it out. Thanks everybody who tuned in. I'm going to turn in. And I appreciate you guys hanging out. I am stoked that this seems to be working, the OBS thing. I'm not sure why it's cutting off so much. I'm guessing that before I do these live streams, I need to make sure I actually restart my computer, because I'm guessing that's the biggest issue, is I've been running it all day and didn't give it a break. Maybe Corey will know some tips too on getting a smoother stream. But I appreciate you guys. We got through it. And it was a fun discussion. It was a fun conversation. And as usual, I really appreciate you guys. If you haven't yet, hit that bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. Hit the like button. That helps these streams get to more people. And make sure you're subscribed in this.